representing Portugal, and we became friends then. So that's just one deal. You know, you meet people at conventions and, you know, you say hello and it's all very nice and you connect, blah, 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 you know, that's just part of the fellowship deal. However, we crossed paths again later on with the evolving of the fellowship in Spain and in Portugal. And then we found ourselves, you know, in the same lineage. And then we found ourselves with the same sponsor. So we've been comparing notes on our process of recovery, so to speak, for the last good few years. Because, you know, when you do the deal, you talk the same language and you find your people. And not everybody's into the spirit world side of the deal, what we do. And there's not everyone you can talk to, but Alex became a friend and someone who we sort of became accountable to each other. And then last year, in around June, it was put to me by somebody who was thinking of starting a steel on steel group. And yeah, Alex's name came up. And so that's just taken me to another level of my own personal development. And I think it has for Alex, because for the 4 members who are on the group who are here tonight, it's been a powerful deal getting aligned with 4 people who've been through the same process and then growing, you know, with that deal. So I'm really pleased to introduce Alex tonight. He's a good friend of mine, a brother in recovery. So I'll hand it over to you, Alex, and Stitch will take care of any microphones and give you a heads up 5 minutes before the end. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Will. My name is Alex and I'm an addict. Welcome, family. This is the way I see this lineage and this meeting. Thank you so much for the invitation, Will, and for the introduction. I hope to speak about that convention because it was one of the powerful God moments, a mark in my recovery in the process of CA. I think God was trying to hook me up already with this lineage in the beginning of my recovery, but I was just like, no, I got it. I'm going to do my way. We all know how that goes. Well, it could get worse, actually. Anyways, so I'm actually, my family, I'm on a 11-day vacation with the family. So father, mother, wife, son, they are all in the next room, just having dinner. And, oh man, I just hope I just go straight to the solution so they won't hear the bad stuff. Anyway, they speak Portuguese and I hope they will be just interesting in their own conversation. And I just had the idea to go to a sauna before the speaker, and I'm just like feeling like I'm, not relaxed, not just feel like, hi, I spent too much time over there. That was not a good idea. Anyway, I love to be here, and I'm actually very excited to be, in this particular meeting sharing, because it's been a big part, a big transformation, especially, since the COVID, since we start this meeting, and I've been connected with a lot of people that are in the lineage and speak the same language, right? That for me, it played a huge deal in my recovery, and we was talking about the steel on steel, man. So there's one saying that says from Ram Dass, which I love, which is, if you know how enlightened you are, go spend a week with your family, right? So here's the thing. It's the first time ever, the vacation haven't stopped, but it's the first time ever that I'm, on a big vacation and not one single argument, not a resentment, with the family. It's just, I'm not enlightenment at all, but, it's just really cool. And I think it's a big result of doing steel on steel, and as on steel, I actually been, just sharing the inventory with these 3 guys every night for the last 6 or 7 months, just like regularly, and it just basically is what it says in the book, I just needed to be hooked up with this deal on steel deal to start redoing the basics, honestly, because I was just putting a little bit aside. And that doesn't work really good. Anyway, so welcome, Ryan, to the Lineage meeting. I've started my journey not in this lineage, right? So my thing was crack cocaine. I tried a lot of drugs, not a lot, a few drugs, alcohol and, smoking weed joints was kind of my thing. And I was trying to get some drugs, and I was always, trying everything until one day I tried cocaine and I never wanted to try anything else, right? What I did was actually learn or try ways that cocaine would hit me harder. So I started smoking crack cocaine, and I'm so blessed because I started doing that very early, because it was a highway to hell. Any crack smoker will understand this, just get down, boom, you're fucked. No, bye-bye, Alex. Ciao, ciao. So I'm also, interesting thing, my thing, the way I had fun, I never had, an interview with people, was with cocaine. I would go to bars, to pubs, to discos, and I would stay on the parking lot. I would not enter. With crack cocaine, I wouldn't leave the house, right? And I always absolutely loved to go to raves in electronic music. So that was my thing. And that was the only period that I would not use crack cocaine and have fun. But I would, and I would try other different drugs like, MDMA, speed, something like that. Just all related. I never liked the psychedelic part of it, although I was going to psychedelic festivals. So I entered, that was my crew. I would love the effect of entering a rave festival, kind of sober in the beginning, and I just, that feeling of I'm going to put something inside of me, a drug, and I'm just going to disconnect, and I'm just going to be dancing for the next 70 hours with no idea what's going to happen, just having fun. That was the kind of pure thing of, I'm saying this because that was actually give me something that I was looking for, this disconnection. I couldn't understand, right? With cocaine, I had that for seconds, right? And that was just like, anyway. That was the having fun part. But honestly, my family's on the next thing. But the description that goes to me for the last time I used was naked, freezing, frozen, just sweating, with a pipe on my hand, just on the couch with the television in front of me, doing porn, and I was just completely paranoid to the door next to it, just focus, on the little crack under the door. Someone is on the other side. Chaotic, desperate, fuck, and I couldn't stop. No matter how, it was just horrible. I knew that I had a problem. So I'm not stupid, and it was pretty obvious that I had a problem. So I kind of, it took me like 3 or 4 years after that realization to ask for help, but I eventually got it. My parents, I'm so blessed with the family I have today, and, with everything, but I love them, they love me. But I asked for help, and they immediately took me to a therapist. The therapist was one of us, and put me doing the meetings. So that's where my journey began. And I spent the 4 years in the meetings, the most horrible phase of my life. So those 4 years, there was no CA in Portugal, and it's not about the fellowship. The fact was that I spent the first 4 years in the meetings, surrounded by addicts, unable to be stopped. And 4 years to be in the meetings is a long time. So I was able to be clean for 3 months, for 4 months, for 3 weeks. I was able to be clean for a period of time. But I don't know what happened. Back then, eventually, I would be using again. I would go to, during those 4 years, I never stopped doing meetings. I went to treatment. I moved to Spain. I went to live to Spain. I started studying. I changed girlfriends. The treatment just stayed there for 2 weeks. My parents were going to Brazil, and I said, "Man, I'm not going to be with these junkies. I'm going with you." So arrived to Brazil. Same thing happened, and it got me to a point of complete desperation and thinking, I maybe, the suicidal thought became to come in my head and say, "You know what, Alex? You better jump out of this window on the last relapse, because you're never going to be okay. You are absolutely doomed. You are never going to be okay. You're going to call your parents again." And I remember to be naked again. I love being naked. Just on the bed, just desperate, crying. I'm also a crybaby, crying, just thinking, I hate my life. I hate this. I need to take this pain away. I just need to kill myself, right? I never, on those 4 years, that was a living hell, had thought about suicide. And I have to tell you that God knew I was ready to meet him back then. I absolutely know it. I know that desperation just brought, just opened the thought to him, right? So kind of, I hear a voice, just like, call your father, man up. I guess that was the way that God wanted me to man up, calling my father, asking for help. So I call him, and I just started the meetings all over again. So long story short, I went to a AA meeting with 3 months. This was actually very interesting, This is how God started to just put me on the right direction, because I was being directed already by God without knowing it. So, what we like to call angel with no wings on earth, I think that's the expression. So I was living in Spain. The fellowship was pretty small, like maybe CA in Portugal, like 5 years ago, we were just like 10 of us. So we knew everybody. And there appears one guy in a meeting and says, it appears in any meeting, that was what I was doing. And he said, "Hey man, let's go. There's a very good meeting tomorrow of AA. Well, he didn't say AA. There's a very good meeting tomorrow. Would you like to join me in?" So I met him next day on the door. No one remembers him. No one remembers his name. No one knows who that guy was. And he just met me in the front of the bar. And he said, "Hey, just go in, because I'm with a big addict and I cannot go in." So I entered, and I never saw that man again, ever again. In a small fellowship, that's not the type of things that happen. So I entered in that meeting, and the words came out of my mouth for the second time, actually. I'm looking for a sponsor, and it was a AA Big Book study meeting. There was a guy speaking that ended up to being my sponsor. But the minute I said I'm looking for a sponsor, everybody just looked at me, and the eyes were sparkling. And that was just boom. Just finally, God was just like, "All right, finally, Alex." So I was attacked after in the meeting, but everybody wanted to sponsor me, and I was just like, whoa. So I got sponsored, and in 1 hour, I had a conversation with someone that was armed with facts about himself. Basically, he told me something. I haven't heard that message for a long time. So it took me to the process very fast, a little bit different. So, full commitment, 7 weeks, you need to read 5 pages per day, and you need to meet me 6 p.m. on Friday with the work done. If you appear 6:05, bye-bye. If you appear before, don't ring my door. It was very strict, and I was just like, it was my last chance, and I took it very serious. 9 months, 5 months, so basically 2 months after, I was finishing my amends, and I was having a spiritual awakening as a result of that. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And I was in Portugal and in Spain, and I was doing the amends, and it was just like spectacular, right? And I was just like, I had discovered something. So in this process, I never heard about Cocaine Anonymous. So I went to I was in the process of moving back to Portugal, living in Spain, and my current sponsor, but my actual sponsor back then, was opening CA, and he was always telling me, look, what you're doing is Cocaine Anonymous, what you're doing is Cocaine Anonymous, but I couldn't understand what that meant. So he said, look, it's going to happen in a few months, World Convention in Birmingham that Will was talking about. Let's go together. So I went to one or two meetings before with him opening in Madrid, CA, but it was just me and him, and I couldn't really understand. For me, that was just basically step work. So I flew to, I was actually getting a little bit resentful with the meetings because I start to feel a little bit outsider because I carry a message from another meeting. Nothing wrong with other fellowships, but I was, it's like, I was carrying a different message. I was just like, I felt like I was the only one having this type of experience. So I went to Cocaine Anonymous World Convention in Birmingham, and I was having this conversation in the lobby, for the people that know that hotel, with a sponsor saying, okay, I'm going to open CA in Portugal, but I need someone, to do this. I'm not going to do this alone. And suddenly, when I'm having this conversation, my eyes start to cross with another guy that has been with me for a long time in some therapies, and he was from Portugal, the only Portuguese guy over there, holding a starter kit to start a meeting with some trustees. And our eyes crossed, and I said, hey, what you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. I'm opening CA in Portugal. I need someone. And I was just like, no shitting. I was having this conversation with my sponsor, and boom, right? And that was that perfect God moment. So what we've done. Oh, and by the way, on that convention, I went. The first speaker that I heard was Chris Raymer, and it was just like the first time I heard the message, I was just like exactly what I was feeling. I was absolutely on fire. I was just like, whoa. And I went to see, I start to see that everybody on the marathon meetings, English guy full of tattoos and stuff, talking genuinely happy about God. Everybody was, just chest up and, just happy and talking about the solution and living. And, there was a sparkling, and that was a vibe that I never saw in the rooms of recovery. And I said, I definitely need to be this. That's where I heard Will. And it was interesting because I heard Will talking about and sharing about his experience of opening, of doing a lot of service in the early days of his recovery in CA Marbella. And that was a big and huge impact of something that I had to do, right? Long story short, we went to Portugal. It took a year to open CA Portugal. And what happened was that the program that I've done was good enough to maintain what I had in the beginning, right? And I was doing inventories every night, calling my sponsor in the UK. There was no WhatsApp back then. And, but there was a point when, I just stopped doing that. And it says in step 10, there's a sentence that says, it's very, a warning in step 10 that says that we are not cured. It's very easy to rest on our laurels. I was, just doing a lot of service, and I start to think, self began to take over me. I start to think that I was the president of CA Portugal. I start to think that I was, the man, that I was kind of acting God. I was praying for selfish ends, and it got me to a point of 5 years clean of complete desperation. I start acting out. I couldn't tell the truth to anyone in the fellowship. I was putting a mask. I was, trying to show everyone that CA was okay. I was running a business basically, and I was absolutely dying inside. And I knew that I was going to use again. It was just a matter of time. I had a pretty solid, I knew that this deal was about God, and I was praying to God, and He was not there for me because, everything started to lose control. I started to lose control over life. And I became a father, and I had a huge fight. I was absolutely out. I had a huge fight with my wife, and I broke on my knees with my newborn baby, started crying, desperate, because I knew I was going to use again. There was no doubt, because that was what happened. I knew that for experience, I was going to use again. What calms me down when I'm with, to be unhappy, I would use, man. You're not like happy one day, on a happy 2 days, on a happy 3 days. But I just can't control it, man. There's something that I need to be done. If I'm not fulfilling that with God, I will fulfill that with drugs, man, and with crack cocaine for me. So I was terrified. And my wife just said, you need to look for another sponsor. She's not from the meetings. And, it's interesting because, she was an alcoholic. She was an alcoholic. She was having some alcohol problems. She went to the same doctor I went. She heard the things once. She never went back. And she became almost, a lot of years without drinking. She began drinking again, and she's controlling it. I spent there 5 or 6 years of my life listening to the same story and going over and over again. So that was really clear with the definition of the, I don't know, in English it says the moderate, the exaggerator. I don't think that's the word in English, and the real alcoholic. And I could make that difference seeing her. it's actually pointing in with a sufficient reason in my book, Rita. Anyway, I went to Spain and I got sponsored and I did the work all over again. So it was my entrance in the lineage. Here's the thing. So that was basically the big transformation. And it's not that the work that I have done wasn't working. Is that I really needed to go deeper in this connection with God. I needed to go deeper in this book. What I like, one of the things is, for me, it's just like how you interpret the big book, right? Someone that passed me the message, how they, the message that they have in the lineage is the way that, is the same book, but we have a different interpretation of the meanings of the stuff, right? I was purely living the 9 bedevilments. So I got sponsored, and we start, the first step for there. And I kind of rush this part because that was what I really like to talk about. Just how powerful it was for me, because I thought I was, something was wrong, but, I didn't want to do all the work all over again. I wanted to do step 10, 11, and 12. I thought that would be just enough to maintain me sober. And I realized that I was the first time that I entered deeper on the spiritual part and aspect of it. And I tried to understand, and it was easy for me to understand it because I was living it. When I start to read those 9 bedevilments, I identify 100% with them because I was living that on a daily basis. I was suffering like hell. I was petrified. I couldn't make a living. I couldn't, I just became a father. I was supposed to have the beautiful moments of my life, and I just couldn't do anything. My parents, couldn't stand me because we worked together. My wife was just like, dude, you need to work your shit out, or you're just gonna find another person to live with. And, it's a very dark place to be. Sober, 5 years, praying to God, thinking that God is not answering to my prayers, and thinking if I don't have God, I don't have anything, so I'm just, God abandoned me. And that was so clear that was the most fearful thing, that because at 5 years, I know that I need God, but I'm praying and God is not there for me, right? When we moved to step 2, it was for me the most powerful experience that I had. The powerful of understanding the conception of God that I had. And I remember, because I was doing the work and I was basically going through, what is blocking me from God. And I start to, all right, I'm okay, God is this, God is that, God is okay, God is, just like, but then I start to go deeper. And I remember my sponsor says to me, hey, Alex, we need the truth, me and God, so we can work with you. And I start to go deeper on that truth. And I said, God actually abandoned me. God is not here for me. God, my wife just had the bad labor because of you. Where were you? I thought you had my back. And I start to get angry at God, right? And I remember to do this exercise and to have this realization and to start crying like a baby. And we were doing this online via Skype, and he just said, hey, Alex, look at me. And he's just like, I am going nowhere. And I knew that, the person that was talking to me knew 100% sure, not trusting in himself, trusting in God, something, he knew that I was going to be okay. That the work that was going to be done, that God was there for me, that, I was going to find that power again. And that was, the whole deal, just creating a new conception. As soon as I found that, what was blocking me from God, it was so, easy to understand. He asked me so will you be able to trust your life over to the care of that God? I said, no, I'm not. I'm mad at God. So you need to find a new conception. And, I was looking for God always in outside things, to look for God inside of me. We agnostics, when he talks about that deep inside of us, there's, the connection, the conception of God, and we have to look deep inside of us. It was one of the powerful exercises that I've done, just to find what I do believe in God. How would God be to myself? And the craziest thing is that, not the craziest thing, the most spiritual thing is that on step 10, I did my conception of God, and on step 10, I end up reading a book by Pope Francis. I'm not Catholic, it was just like, following spiritual path. I was directed to that book by a priest. And in step 10, I'm reading that book, and the words of my conception of God were actually written on that book. And, that was just one of the ways that God shows up for me to say, because I need that from God. I'm that type of person that need God to say, hey man, I'm here. And that was one of the confirmations of God saying, hey Alex, that conception was right. It's just right here. Anyway, step 3 for me, understanding self, because that 3 steps of conscientization, of understanding what's wrong with me. I couldn't really get step 3, because the first time I did step 3 was a praying at the okay. I was doing because my sponsor wanted me, asking me to do that. But I was just like, I couldn't understand, and the point where I was about to ask 3 person of how do they see my life running self-will, and to hear the truth about people that I love, how they see me, people that I thought they respect me, they admire me, in saying, look, I'm scared of you, I don't like you, you're this, you're that, and start to see the truth with no fantasies blocking, because I need the truth about myself so I can make that decision. And I was absolutely convinced, because I realized that step 3 was just about taking that decision based on the fact that I'm absolutely convinced that my life run on self is completely unmanageable, is no good. And to have all this, just deep inside of me, no doubt about it, as okay, I will do that decision. I will trust, my life over to the care of you. So I thought I knew everything about the steps. And we went to this step 4, and the way, just like a complete review over there. And, just getting to that experience, that knowing that my resentments, knowing that my sexual behavior, that my fears were basically all as a result of certain belief systems that I had that made me, because they were coming all over and all over and all over again, just the same boom, boom, boom. And that was just such a big eye-opener, because, seeing that how a resentful can affect 7 areas of my life, how a resentment can actually go so deeper inside of me that I'm saying, no, I'm fine. But when I start to write, I said, it's just like seeing the truth with no escape, like, boom, right? Just like no way to escape. When I was doing step 5 and I start to, just like, I remember to say to myself, this guy must be, this guy, my sponsor, this must be a witch. You have a crystal ball, because he was just taking those belief systems, just like that, just like, I need sex to be happy. I need sex to live. I need money to be okay. I need vacations. I need money to have vacations. Otherwise, I'm not going to be happy. I need to be in control. My fears were all driven by control, because I needed to be in control, because otherwise life was going to treat me unfair and I was going to suffer. So I need to take control of my own life and start to have all these realizations and just like, oh my God, where the fuck have I been living? It's just like, it's so powerful. It's so going so deep in my own story. Nothing, I never done something so powerful. Until he actually says to me, he talks about these multiple step 5, what I like to call more like not multiple, but like more a menage a trois, because it's with 3 people. It's not with 2. It's like multiple, it was 3 people. And I went to, and all these experiences with sharing my sexual inventory with a woman was one of the most powerful, it just is something that I won't do, it's not something that I would be able to do, just sharing with a priest. I went to a priest and just trying to follow God, just praying for a name, and I was trying, my rational mind, just thinking on a person that I would like to do step 5, and, God did for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Is so strong, the name of that priest, and I'm thinking, no. I would rather go to my friend, no, and the name just come, go to that priest, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going to that priest. And I arrive there, and he's just smoking, in the church saying, Alex, I'm waiting for you. And I was just like, what? And he's like, first of all, God loves you. And I'm just like, oh man, what I'm doing here. And I arrived there, start to do step 5, just thinking, must be crazy. And he just puts a hand on me, and 3 minutes after, I'm crying again like a healing baby. Crying is just healing for me. Just be healing, just crying like a baby, just, so I was there for a reason. I was, it's not up to me to choose the person I'm going to do multiple step 5 with. It's up to me to allow God to direct me. And my self wants to, block it. Self wants to be in control, in every situation, even following God's thing. But He will make sure that I will right there. So interesting thing with that person, so with 3 persons doing step 5, it was completely different experiences that were needed to have. I needed to have those experiences. With that priest, later I discovered that he actually was doing HNI for church in prison. So it was just like a baby arriving to him. So he knew what he was doing. So when he put me crying after 3 minutes, asking me what was my, there was a grown man with 35 years old or 33 crying with the priest about my mom not give me attention when I was a child, and I was just like embarrassing and crying and yelling. I was suffering from that, and I couldn't, I would have never figured out. There was a healing process, these 12 steps, and everything was happening for a reason. One of the things I thought about step 7 was that I was the one that had to change my behaviors. And that was one of the magical parts that when, Mike said to me on a conversation, it's not up to you, you will give him to God. It's him that will have to change. I don't know if it was his words, but, what I understand was like, if I could do them, I didn't need to go to God, right? If I could change them. And that was the list with 5 years after of a step 8 and a step 9, man. And I think I'm running out of 10 more minutes, so I'm just going to be very fast on this one. And the amends that I like to speak, one of them was to my father. I've done amends in the past. And just to understand how I was living on self, when I did the script, my father, he just said, is there anything I can do? And he said, look, I just want to be able to sleep at night. I just want you to give me a rest, man. We are having a vacation today. Lovely. I love him. He loves me. He's with his grandson. There was a transformation here. There was a big transformation because I couldn't let them to have fun. I would be sober, but I was just demanding, like a child for them to do my will for whatever it was. There was a big transformation. 11 days, not one fight. That's not happening to us. But, the real amends that I like to speak, and I've been speaking about this to you a lot, is the amends that I cannot explain. We are doing a spiritual work, right? So you're going to have spiritual experience, all right, but still, one of them, one of the names that came in my step 8 was an unborn baby. So my first girlfriend, one of the girlfriends I had did an abortion. I only thought that God was punishing me for that abortion she made, right? My life was a living hell. So finally, that name, not of her, but that unborn child, came, right? I need to do an amend to that soul that was never born because I didn't want to. I was, worried with using. And the response was, how I'm going to do an amend like this? Just pray, 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 pray. And I'm praying, praying, praying. And I'm just like, I'm not getting any answer. And I'm praying, praying, praying. And I'm driving. And suddenly a thought, a voice, I don't know how to describe this. Just say, go to Expo Church. Expo Church is it's a certain church that I ever went to. And I'm just like, I must be out of my mind. And I'm just move my car and I go to that church and I'm just thinking what I'm doing here, what I'm just following voices. I must be crazy. There is self, just fighting with spiritual work. And I arrived there to that church. I asked the key because it was locked up. There was a lady that opened the church and I enter in the church and I'm just like, what I'm doing here, doesn't make sense. And that, on that moment that I say that, and the door closed, boom, and this echo like a movie in the church, and I just looked to where it was supposed to be an altar, right? There is just this sand sculpture of a little baby. And I'm just like, I just fall on my knees, and I just knew that I was there for a reason. And I just start crying, healing. I was driven there. I was conducted there. And I did the answer, and I did the script, and I was waiting for answer. I haven't heard anything. I just needed peace on that matter. I just needed to know that he was listening to me. I just needed to know I just needed peace because I did the answer and the questions. I was, just waiting for. I wanted more. I just needed to cry. I just needed to know that something bigger than me was just running the show, and I just needed to trust. On these last 5 minutes, one of the men was a dog. I love to tell this man, this was my dog. This was my dog. And she was dying in the kitchen of my parents. And I think they will never forget me about this. They say they do, but they were really in shock. And I was smoking crack, and she was dying, and they were waiting for me on a decision to kill it with a veterinarian, right? With, I don't know how to say in English, but they kill it when the dog is kind of suffering and the pain. And he was suffering almost for a weekend, and then for a week. And I went home, and, I just fell on my knees. What the hell I'm doing with my life, just after a week, just using. And the dog just runs after me, just licking me. And I went back to the crack house. My parents called me and say, don't ever come to home again because, just Kiki's dead, I don't want to see you. So after all these years, I need to do amends to that dog. So I went to a place, actually, it's, my father never told me where they buried the dog, but I knew kind of area. And I arrived there and I start doing the amend. And when I do the questions, it is in the middle. It's not in the city. It was in the middle of countryside. And I just start looking to a tree. Just a little bit of life, and just the wind. And I start doing the prayer, and I suddenly start to hear a bark. Woof, 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 woof. Will, you were never thinking I was barking, doing my share. And then I start to hear another bark. And the old dogs in the neighborhoods, in the country, in the farm, start to barking. And I knew, I was there for a reason again. And it just changed my perspective. And this is a type of spiritual experiences, just the small ones, on these 3 last minutes that I had. One of the things I love, I always thought that the work was until step 9 and the other one was kind of the maintenance. For me, at this point, is where the real work begins on step 10, 11, and 12. This is where the real work really begins, is where I need to, we have entering the world of the spirit. We have to learn how to, it's really cool because it's a very personal part. We have direct suggestions or directions. In my case, I've been directed, just to follow them with our 12 steps. But it's very personal because each of us can go in a different direction in the spiritual path. They all go basically I think, the same way. But it's where the magic start to happen. It's still on still stuff. It's just powerful. It's just how transformation has been for me on the last months to suddenly have 3 more sponsors on the same lineage. One of them is actually I sponsor. And on that, every other weekend, he's sponsoring me. He's giving me, and there's no, I'm not going to do this on still. I'm not thinking, just, they will not allow me to do that. Is just a pure commitment with spirituality, and being together with 3 more people that are doing that, just wants me to keep growing. It's just, I'm so blessed with that. I'm so blessed to be surrounded, I think, basically God put the people that I needed in my life just to follow them, right? I struggle with that. God gave me free will to do whatever I want to do, and He's always there to receive me and to love me, no matter what I do, right? Because step 10 is very clear on that. We continue to do a lot of stuff that is not supposed to, we're going to continue to do. Sorry, my wife was just like there. Now it was just like, my head thinking, am I saying something that she cannot hear, or am I okay? So, sorry guys. I completely lost myself. Anyway, I think my time is up, right, Nick? Yeah. So I'm really happy with to be here tonight, and I'm very happy. This is where I'm going. God just connect me with the persons that I need to be connected with, and even if I struggle, I think that God knows that I'm genuinely looking for Him. He will make sure that I will open my eyes and go straight. I asked someone to sponsor me before asking Mike. That guy said, okay, I can sponsor you, but you need to buy me a watch so I can go to Portugal as an excuse. And I just got pure resentful. I hate this guy. It came on my step 4. I'm so blessed. I love that man. He has done nothing wrong. God was saying, no, Alex. No. He's not that person. Because God knew that was the only reason I was going to say to him, man, I don't want you as a sponsor. Get out of here, right? And I called him and he said, I need to make amends to you. He said, no, you don't, man. Everything is okay between us. And, that is a transformation that this program gave me, because that's not my essence. My essence is to, fuck you all, and my will be done. And anyways, thank you so much. And that's it. I'm going to shut up. Otherwise, I think I'll wake up from the sauna now. Thank you, Nick, for showing that.